Good morning, everyone, from beautiful Australia this morning. Another perfect day in paradise, as they say. And Oscar and I are out going for a walk, and I just wanted to do a Facebook Live this morning and have a chat about an episode that I did yesterday on the podcast show. And the episode yesterday was with Laura Nadeau from Miami in Florida. Good morning, Laura, if you're listening. Wonderful to have you on the show yesterday. And what we talked about was, well, we talked about a lot of things. So we got into the whole subject of long distance relationships and dating somebody who doesn't necessarily live in your own backyard. Come on, Oscar, come on. And it was fascinating, really fascinating, because we think of travel either for work or for vacations and all the rest of it. But I guess we're not really realizing how many people are traveling around the world or cross country to actually start a relationship or to see whether there's an opportunity to start a relationship. And I find it really fascinating because there's probably a lot more people out there doing that than we actually realize. And in speaking to Laura yesterday, there's really a science and an art behind it, and she was a fantastic guest to talk about all the different, I guess, highs and lows of the dating game, and whether it be dating somebody from down the end of your street to dating somebody on the other side of the world, and all the things that one takes into consideration or should take into consideration, I guess, to make it more successful. What came out of it for me was the obvious things in terms of you can find love anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be down the end of the street, and quite often it's not, let's face it, that way. And also to look for some of the signals, and I don't think people are intentionally bad when they do this dating stuff. I just think that people are really wanting to be connected, and that's the thing that drives us all in this world, is to be connected. And yesterday, in speaking to Laura and understanding her journey, and she's an incredible woman, she's put a lot of this her journey online. Datingblogandadventures.com is the website, and it's a really fascinating transparency into the life of somebody who's had a pretty rough time with men and been treated pretty badly by men, and yet she's come out the other side, and she's got a lot of humility around how she's moving forward with this whole dating scene, and she's open to anything. She's dating people from all over the world online and making decisions around whether or not they're worthy of her time, they're worthy of her soul, and being able to actually travel to meet them. So I really learned a lot from listening to Laura yesterday, and I guess in terms of when you're living on a boat and working on a boat, you get pretty isolated from the rest of the world. So your online community actually becomes a very important part of your life, and it's not just, I'm not talking about dating here, I'm talking about life in general. So I'm finding by connecting to all these people who are guests on my show, and also the people that are writing in and messaging me about the different shows, it's a great connection to have. And I think this whole online dating thing is about the connections that we have and we create with an intention of making it something a little bit more substantial in the way of a love connection. But it really drove home to me that whole notion of how desperately people want to be connected in a good way. I think everybody loves enjoying spending their time with other people that they get on with and that they're happy with and that makes them happy. We all know that in life it's sometimes much more entertaining and nicer to share your life goals and your dreams and your experiences with somebody else. But at the same time, we recognise the fact that if you haven't got somebody in your life at this particular time, well, there's a reason for that as well. And someone only said to me yesterday is that, you know, partners are there for seasons and they come and go, and nothing lasts forever in life, even long-term relationships. So I found that really fascinating. It was great chatting to Laura, and she's based in Miami now. She moved her life from California across to Miami, and what was also interesting in talking to her yesterday was the fact that she gave up a lifestyle. She realized that all the materialistic things that she had in her life were not bringing her happiness, and that she needed to change those things. And I think we get set in our patterns a lot of the time where we take things for granted and we keep repeating cycles. I know that I used to do that a lot in the corporate world. So when you're in that kind of job, which is day after day full on, and you're only thinking about the things that you have to do, there isn't a lot of room for expansion really, and it's not until you put yourself in a position of either moving location or changing your vocation as it be, that you really have the opportunity to grow. And that's another thing that I love about a lot of the guests that I've had on my show so far. They've actually talked about how they've changed their lives completely, and Laura was another person that did that. And she didn't move to Miami just to find love. She moved to Miami for lifestyle reasons and started a new journey in life. So that often helps as well in terms of just creating a new place to live and somewhere where you can start again, hit the reset button, and be around new people and new experiences. As Laura said yesterday, she was from a town where everybody knew each other. Everybody probably knew each other's business as well. And as a result of that, she found it hard to, I guess, expand and also to find the right person to connect with. So that was a great part of the chat yesterday as well. So a really interesting chat about long distance relationships. Some of the things that came out of that also was, you know, as two people connecting across the world, take your time, but also at the same time, when things feel right for you to connect, whether that be meeting up in person. Laura suggested to make sure you do that in one of the person's locations. She was happy to travel to anywhere in the world to meet somebody because she wants to be traveling. That was one of her desires out of this, was that she wanted the travel experience also to be part of that whole romantic side of meeting somebody else. So she says that she would prefer to travel to meet somebody rather than having somebody in her own space. And I can understand that, because it's perhaps a lot different for a woman having a strange man in their private space. So we also talked about, or I suggested to her, what about meeting somebody in a neutral location, and she was quite against that because of the fact that it's more of a fantasy type meeting and it's not back to reality in terms of being in each other's backyard. And I tend to agree with that. I think in terms of, if you're going to meet somebody on the other side of the world and make that investment, then you want to give yourself a chance to see what reality would actually be like. So another good takeaway from that particular situation. Laura also shared about the relevance of dating in today's society, and of course we all know there's all these online dating sites and apps, and there's lots of, I guess, skepticism around some of those activities and what people put on there. And we chatted about the authenticity, I guess, of some of those sites and how people are quite pronounced when it comes to putting old photographs and not telling the truth about their life story. I wonder why we do that. I guess it's a case of wanting us to look better in front of the eyes of the beholder rather than showing any downsides and weaknesses. I'd be really interested to know what you think about that, because it's a case of how authentic do we want to be online, and do we want to be fully transparent prior to meeting somebody? And Laura and I talked about that in length as well, in terms of you really don't get to know someone until you actually meet them and you're face to face with them. And Laura had another good, I guess, process or remedy when it comes to when you meet somebody for the first time in that situation. And she has a kind of a timeline that she works by, and it's no more than 3 days. So going and spending it the maximum of 3 days, not spending all that time with somebody, but giving each other enough of a chance to actually get to know each other and find out whether that chemistry is actually there and whether it's going to work or not. So I think that's another good piece of advice that Laura shared yesterday, was the 3-day theory. If you haven't listened to this episode yet, get on Apple iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or the website at Global Travel Channel and download it and listen to it in the weekend, because it's a really, really interesting insight. And as I continue my journey on the Global Travel Channel, I'm finding that there's so many different topics that we can talk about related to travel and why people travel. Tomorrow morning I'm finally doing the show with the young lady who's riding a motorbike around the world and has been doing so for a number of years. We've had some challenges getting our schedules together, but that's coming up tomorrow on the show. And I'm really excited to be talking to Anna about her trip, because I met her in Singapore a number of years ago. She's now in Argentina at the moment, and we're going to be hooking up from Buenos Aires. Beautiful city, by the way. If you haven't been to Buenos Aires, get over there. It's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting to her. But there's another example on how people are doing their own thing, using travel as a means of expanding their own personal development, but also meeting other people from different cultures. And it was really good talking to Laura about that yesterday, because as she said, by having long distance relationships, there's challenges associated with that. And I think in terms of understanding each other's cultures, and it can be right across the world, it can be just in your own backyard by dating somebody from a different culture. You don't have to travel all the way across the world to do that. So I find that really, really interesting. So yeah, so much great stuff came out of talking to a woman in her 50s who's out there on the global dating scene, using travel as a means of connecting, but also using the online ability to widen her world of opportunity. And I think, we talk so much about the downsides of technology and Facebook Live and all those things, but if we're in the search of love and we're looking for somebody to connect with, isn't it a brilliant way that we can actually get online and start FaceTiming and Skyping people and starting to build relationships and perhaps end up being in a relationship with them? I think that's absolutely fantastic, because people are limited sometimes because of their geographical location, and I think the world is a different place today when it comes to being able to travel for romance. And let's face it, it wasn't that long ago where people had to get on a boat and spend 3 months going across the world to meet their new love or something. Today we have the wonderful opportunity of really being across the world in a matter of hours if we find somebody that we connect with. So yeah, it was such a good episode yesterday, and I really enjoyed listening to Laura and all the wonderful things she's got. So datingblogandadventures.com, check out Laura's site. She's got some really incredibly transparent and raw blog posts there. I was amazed about how forthright she was, but I was also very, very inspired by that, because I think it's something we're missing in society today, is that authenticity, and Laura's definitely somebody that's got that. So yeah, really interested to hear your views on online dating, on long distance relationships. Had a post there yesterday and a couple of people jumped on. Rebecca and Sue and also Jeff out there jumped on and said, look, we've tried this. For some of them it worked out incredibly well in terms of long distance relationships have actually ended in them having a marriage and a child out of that. So that's fantastic for Rebecca in New Zealand there. And as Jeff shared yesterday, it didn't work out. So there's lots of reasons why it didn't work out, I guess, and I'd like to understand a little bit more about that. So if you've had a long distance relationship and it has worked out or it hasn't worked out, jump on and let us know why, because I'm really interested to find out more. And I want to get Laura back on the show to talk about some more stuff around this, because we rushed through the hour rushed through on us really, and we didn't get to chat about everything that we possibly wanted to. So I want to have another opportunity in doing that. Just keeping Oscar on track here. Come on, Oscar, let's go, mate. So yeah, really interesting stuff. So that was it, episode 83. Got another 17 episodes to do before I hit the milestone of 100. Today is an interesting day. I'm going to spend a lot of my day today doing training, podcast training. So I've got onto a few groups online, and again, using the online environment to upskill myself on podcasting technical skills, but also marketing skills, which are a huge part of getting your podcast out there to a greater audience. So a lot of my day today is going to be spent on actually doing podcast training, particularly from a marketing point of view, and also learning a little bit more about the technical side of it. So, this podcast journey is really, really interesting. It's not just about talking to people, it's all the other peripheral activities that go with making a podcast accessible but also interesting. So you've got to think about your website, you've got to think about the ways that people are going to listen to your podcast, you've got to think about the actual length and duration of your podcast, because that's also something that can either irritate somebody or bring them back for more if you've got a good dynamic show. I've been really fortunate because I've had so many amazing guests on my show, and that seems to have driven the audience participation and interest, and as a result of that I've been very happy and satisfied with the growth and the numbers of the show across the world. It's been really, really good. But if you do want to get into podcasting, I strongly recommend that you spend a lot of time doing research. It's not as easy, as I say, as going out there and buying a microphone and just starting to talk to people. That's the amazing part of it. That's the part that I really, really love. but there's the other part of making sure that your podcast gets actually listened to and that people around the world are connecting with it. And like anything in life, it's a journey. It's not something that you're necessarily going to have overnight success with. I'm 5-6 months, this is my 6th month into it now. Absolutely loving it, absolutely love all the processes behind it, even though some of them really give me a hard time, like the editing side of things. But when it comes to finding guests, talking to people, learning the new skills around the technical side of it, really, really, really happy. And can't wait for 2020 and taking the show to a lot more people and actually doing some road trips and getting on the water and doing things a little bit differently to change it up as well. Okay, we've got a bit of a noise from cleaning there, so I'm gonna wrap up for today. Today's Thursday, started down here in Australia already for those in other parts of the world. Wish you all an amazing day. Thanks Laura again for a wonderful podcast episode yesterday on long distance dating. If you haven't heard it, go to the Global Travel Channel website or check out my Facebook page. I'll put the link there. And give me your views and feedback. I'd love to hear about your experiences of long distance relationships. Did it work out for you? Or was it something that you'd rather forget about and move on from? Yeah. So that's it. From me and Oscar, he's walking behind me. Have a wonderful day everybody. Enjoy life and do what you love doing. We'll see you again soon.